Welcome everyone to another CTC Software webinar. My name is Sean Zerbis, the Director of BIM Development here at CTC Software, and today we're going to continue in the HIVE CMS User Learning Series talking in depth about how to update and work with content tagging. So let's talk about today's topic. Tags really can be an excellent way of filtering content in the HIVE CMS. And I'm going to show that a little later on exactly how you can use some tags. We've talked about it before and using some filter controls, but I want to make sure I recap that. And here's the real key aspect of this. You can play a part in the usefulness of all that tagging. If you're listed as a contributor, any content contributors in the HIVE environment are allowed to update any kind of tagging on content. And what that really does is it helps to increase the ability of filtration. It's a very subjective filtration, but it's one that really can help you as end users, as daily HIVE CMS users, to be able to find exactly what you're looking for in the CMS, beyond some of all the other built-in filters that we've already got. So in this webinar, I'm going to discuss exactly how to update tagging and how you can leverage those tags to really kind of work with your own searching practices. And everything else we've talked about saving searches, about leveraging other filtration, you can combine that with exactly what we're going to be talking about today to really make using HIVE a lot easier. So we're going to talk about what tag and filtration controls exist. We are going to create an association of a tag with a piece of content. We're also going to talk about disassociating tags from content in case you've tagged too many things or something is no longer relevant. And then we're going to validate tag association just to make sure that it's there or not there by inspecting some of the content details. And we'll take a look at that two different ways. All right, so we're going to jump in live since I'm not big on death by PowerPoint, and we're going to be focusing 100% in the HIVE CMS. We're not really talking about any design apps today, though I'll probably be using a lot of Revit content. This is independent of the content type. Every piece of content can be tagged and can be kind of filtered via tagging. So let's take a look at tag filtering controls within HIVE and where you find them so you can begin to leverage that today. So I'm pulling HIVE forward here. I happen to have my HIVE CMS pulled up with tile view here. You can view that just by going here to the tile view option. You can see yours the same way. Of course, list view and table view can also be useful. I'm looking at this in the tile view aspect. And I also happen to have my filters pane pinned open. I do that by clicking on filters. I'm pinning it to make sure that it stays on screen all the time. And that lets me see the most relevant filters 100% of the time. And regardless of if I'm using a specific design app filter, you'll notice here at the very top, always expanded, is the libraries and the portion that we're talking about today, tags. So we can leverage these tags to filter content. And all you need to do here, if I was to clear this out completely and have no specific filters set right now, I've got access to 8,700, almost 8,800 distinct pieces of content in my library. If I was to go to one of these tags and specifically say, I want to see all of the content that's tagged as a specific client, maybe client MSI Tech, for example. If I apply that to my search results, I find the content that's been tagged as that particular thing, whatever that is. Now, the name of the tag is subjective. I'm using a naming convention of client dash or discipline dash or maybe some category subfiltration here. And I'm using that in particular so I can very quickly identify this and search for stuff. So if I was looking exclusively for client tags, I could simply type in, if I could spell client, there we go, C-L-I-E, and then it'll come back with anything that's client-based, right? So naming conventions here from your admin's point of view is important because we don't have control over which tags exist, just which tags are associated if we have contributor level rights in a library here. So with that, let's go take a look here. If I reapply this with no filters, again, we're going to get back to the full list of content here. Let's take a look at how we can associate some tags to something. So we just use the tag, but what if I wanted to associate another piece of content to that same client MSI tag? Maybe there's another thing that's always used on an MSI-based project in this example here. So let's just say I wanted to search for something like swing single. Okay, I'm going to search for something here, just a general search, and I'm seeing a ton of things that match swing single, and I'm like, well, you know what? I always use this swing double and swing single door on these MSI projects that I'm working on with this particular client. So I'm going to go ahead and select the both of these, and I'm going to, this is by using the control key in this case, so I can select multiple items. I'm going to right click and I'm going to manage the tags. Now these happen to both be in libraries this user has contributor level rights to. If they weren't, then I probably wouldn't be seeing the manage tags option here. But I'm going to go ahead and do manage tags, and I'm going to assign some tags or a tag to these two pieces of content. So when I do assign tags here, I can go ahead and choose something like client MSI tech, and I'm going to go ahead and select that. And to both of those pieces of content, it's going to associate that tag. Now, let me just clear this out here, and let's go back to tags and tell it that I want to find all things tagged as client MSI tech. Before I got 3 results, now I should be getting 5 results. And indeed, I get 5 results here because those 2 items are now associated with that particular tag. You might notice this is 100% subjective. This has absolutely nothing to do with the object's properties. I'm not telling it anything about the category. These might be doors. These are detail items here. This is a plumbing fixture over here. There's all kinds of things that are associated to this particular client, and they're completely independent of any Revit or AutoCAD or other kind of filtration. 100% subjective. So you can actually build your own associations to things that make sense beyond the element properties. Okay. Now, sometimes there might become an association that you didn't want, and you want to disassociate a tag. It's actually quite a similar process, but I want to make sure we cover it here. If we go back into the HIVE CMS, we're going to talk about how to disassociate. Oops, clicked wrong there. Let's squish this back down just a bit. Disassociating tags here. If maybe this particular detail right here isn't supposed to be associated to this client anymore or this particular tag anymore, that's fine. Maybe it's a deprecated thing and it's no longer really in use, or it's outdated, or it's not used near as much to justify it being in my list. I can go here to manage tags as a daily Revit or Hive user, and I can remove tags from items as well. So when I choose remove tags, once again, I can choose any tag, whether it's associated or not, I can choose it. So if I'm thinking like, hey, this thing may have been associated with discipline architecture unintentionally, and I want to remove it from that as well, like I could do that. It's kind of unnecessary. It's not really my responsibility as an end user, but I can do that. But in this case, I wanted to disassociate it with the client MSI tech. And so I can select this, and it will take that one piece of content and disassociate it from the client MSI tech here, that particular tag. And so as I reapply my search, my filters, it's going to rerun this, look for everything across my entire environment, but now it is only going to return, again, just like before, items that are tagged as client MSI tech, and that one item, that one detail is no longer in the list because I just disassociated it. Now, sometimes you might want to know what is tagged as what. You want to see the details about an item so you can validate maybe what tagging is associated to it or other properties for that matter as well. And you can do that in the details pane. Now, we've got a webinar that talks quite a lot about the details and a lot of the information that you can find there. But just because we're talking about tags today, I want to make sure you know how to get access to that pane or that information. And I mentioned earlier I was going to show you 2 different ways of getting access to that. Now, there's a simple way. The simple way that I personally like to use for this is a list view, because the list view will show me a list of all of the tags associated, as well as some other things like what library association something has, and reviews and loads, and what category it is, and Revit versions associated to it there are. Like, that's all fantastic stuff, and that doesn't take me having a huge details panel open. But this isn't typically how I view my content. I personally view my content by the tile view. And so instead of switching between these 2 different views, what I will often do is I will open up the details pane so I can get a lot more information about something. Now, if I click on an item, I can see all of the information about that item. It tells me things like if it's in the cloud or not. It tells me what tags are associated here, what libraries it's a part of. I can actually write reviews for some of this content right from here as well if I need to. There's another webinar about writing reviews that we've done, and it's up on our YouTube channel. I can see some of the other properties, and I can even dig into those Revit parameter values through this details pane. So this is why I will typically, personally, open the details pane when I want to inspect deeper details about an item, as opposed to showing the list view here, because if I also then need to see details, it makes my Hive window bigger than I really want. And I like to work with Hive on the same screen as my Revit session, personal preference, where it overlaps Revit a bit. So this just gets to be a bit big for me. That's, again, my personal preference here. So I'll tend to do something more like this. And then when I collapse the details pane, I can potentially sometimes even collapse it a little more. But you can all work however it makes sense for you. So that's pretty much what you need to know about tags. We've talked about filtering by tags here a couple of times. We've talked about associating additional tags, removing tags, and taking a look at the details, whether it be by the list view here, or whether it be by opening up the details panel and selecting something in particular to actually show the details for that item to validate what tags in particular in this case there are associated to that particular object, in case you wanted to inspect that. That can be really useful if you've removed a tag from something and you still see it showing up in your search results for some reason and you're not expecting it to. You can kind of take a look at what tags are associated. And you may have been filtering by more than one tag at the same time. I've done that plenty of times. And if I do that, sometimes I might get more results than I was anticipating. And this helps me sort of validate that and understand, what filters I have going and then which objects are associated to which filters, just by looking at the deep details of that item. I find that helps me be a better Hive user by understanding more about what it is I'm asking for and what's being displayed. All right, so with that, I want to say thank you to all of you who have shown up to the live webinar. We always have more fun when you show up here live and sometimes interact with us with some questions. So once again, we're going to go ahead and say thank you, and we're going to shut down the webinar for today. We do look forward to seeing you in the next HIVE CMS User Learning Series session, so you can continue to become a much better Hive user and be able to more efficiently use it in your daily workflows. So thank you all, and we'll catch you later.